President Trump and his top officials have vowed to use the full weight of the federal government to bring down Antifa.
America, we just uncovered one of the most disgusting scams that I'd ever seen, and it's going to make your blood boil. Antifa militants have infiltrated America's homeless industrial complex using taxpayer-funded nonprofits as cover while they manufacture crises, attack police, and get rich off of human misery. But here's what's really going to make you teed off. These are the same people who claim that they care about homelessness are actually preventing them from getting help because chaos and suffering are more profitable than solutions. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry that's being weaponized by domestic terrorists.
Antifa in Portland has lost their battle. You have absolutely nobody outside the ICE building right now. Their encampment has been completely shut down. You do not see a single member of Antifa, as the police actually came in today and said they cannot no longer be here.
What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This isn't just about homeless policy. This is about how domestic terrorists have hijacked Americans' charity system to fund their violent operations while keeping vulnerable people on the streets. And it's all being done on our tax dollars. Let me get started with some news that changes everything. A federal grand jury just indicted two alleged Antifa members, Cameron Arnold and Zachary Vetz, with terrorism-related charges for attacking an ICE facility in Texas. This marks the first time that Antifa-aligned extremists have been hit with federal terrorism charges.
This was a coordinated, planned attack by dozens of individuals to murder police officers.
Think about that. They chose Independence Day to try to kill American law enforcement. These people used fireworks as distractions while vandalizing vehicles, then opened fire and struck an officer in the neck. But here's what connects to our homeless story. While these terrorists were planning attacks on federal facilities, other Antifa operatives were embedding themselves in homeless nonprofits across the country, using charity work as cover for their violent activities.
They were kitted out in bulletproof vests and masks and opened fire at law enforcement. This is what President Trump is prioritizing. We have to protect the men and women of law enforcement.
The charges come as the Trump administration ramps up its efforts to investigate who's funding Antifa.
President Trump designated Antifa as a terrorist organization, and now we're seeing the results. The FBI has made over 20 arrests tied to this case and related to Antifa networks. But the real question is, who is funding these domestic terrorists? And that, my friends, is where the homeless industrial complex comes in. Now, let me tell you guys about one of the most disturbing discoveries in this investigation. Jonathan Cho, an investigative reporter, shout out to him, just presented evidence to Donald Trump showing that Antifa is heavily embedded in the homeless and housing nonprofit sector. In many cases, the homeless industrial complex is running cover for Antifa.
And hot off the presses, what I wanted to bring to your attention today is a report from a Capital Research Center here in D.C. in conjunction with Discovery Institute. They just put out this study right now, and what it shows is that Antifa is heavily embedded in the homeless and housing nonprofit sector.
This isn't just some conspiracy theory. They found that Antifa is benefiting from American tax dollars and being used as muscle by these so-called charity organizations. Here's how this scam works. There's a group called Stop the Sweeps operating in multiple U.S. cities. They position themselves in front of homeless encampment cleanups, claiming to protect the homeless. But what they're really doing is bringing in Antifa militants to manufacture crisis and make the police look bad.
Another group right now that is behind Antifa and working with Antifa very closely based on the research that we have right now that we're going to give to you and your team.
And it gets worse. According to the report, the Democratic Socialists of America are also working closely with Antifa. These far-left progressive groups are aligning themselves with designated domestic terrorists while taking taxpayer money to supposedly help homeless people. Seattle has become ground zero for this Antifa homeless scam, and what's happening there should terrify every single American. This city is essentially lawless, with drug addicts and crime thriving, while Antifa operatives use homeless camps as bases of operation.
We turn now to Seattle, where the spotlight on the homeless crisis there is unmasking what some residents say is a much more sinister threat to the city. There's a new report from two conservative think tanks that claim that people associated with Antifa have woven themselves into the homeless nonprofits that operate in the city.
They purposely create chaos during homeless encampment removals and encourage violent crime and drug use in the streets. But here's what's really sick. They don't want people to actually get help. As one Seattle police officer said, they know that the homeless crisis is chaotic and out of control, and they want to take advantage of that chaos. Rich McHugh went to Seattle to investigate, and what he found was absolutely beyond shocking. Parks completely taken over by drug addicts, people overdosed in broad daylight, and a total lawless environment that the city is just allowing to continue to happen. Now, let me tell you guys about the money, because this is where it gets really gross. The homeless industrial complex is a multi-billion-dollar grift, and we've talked about that a lot on this channel, and Antifa just figured out how to tap into that cash cow.
Pretty much all the drug addicts, criminals, the black market of stolen goods, it all thrives here. I mean, look at this guy, completely blitzed out of his mind. He's ODing on something, he has a sandwich in his hand. I mean, this again is a drug crisis.
Jonathan Cho explains exactly how this works. What's happening here is being enabled by the homeless nonprofits, and the research shows this is work from far left militants and progressive groups and violent domestic terrorists like Antifa. These nonprofits are getting massive government contracts to quote unquote help the homeless, but instead they're enabling drug use, crime, and chaos while Antifa operatives use the camps as cover for their activities.
It's the same faction of people who link up and protest and, do the black bloc, and, they're often the same people we see working inside social services.
Andrea Suarez, lifelong Democrat and Seattle resident, started a volunteer organization, We Heart Seattle, to clear trash from parks and homeless encampments.
But when she tried to actually help by cleaning up trash, Antifa attacked her. She was pushed into traffic, threatened, and harassed for trying to make her city cleaner. Think about that. Antifa is attacking people who are trying to help the homeless by cleaning up their neighborhoods. Why? Because clean, safe neighborhoods don't generate chaos they need to justify their existence and funding. And here's what's really going to make you mad. Seattle police know exactly what's happening, but they're being told by politicians not to do anything about it.
Mike Solon has been with Seattle PD for 26 years and is the president of Seattle Police Officers Guild.
These activists, these Antifa mobs, the people that are supporting the homeless industrial complex are the ones that target the police officers. People that align themselves with socialist political ideology are the ones that are causing a lot of the energy around anti-police, pro-homeless agenda that aren't interested in solving the problem.
And here's the connection that should terrify you. The same people who are attacking police are running the homeless nonprofits. They're using taxpayer money to fund anti-police activities while keeping vulnerable people on the streets.
Yeah, I've been actually undercover with the Antifa at multiple events in the past week, and I'm now in Portland, where I've been at the ICE facility, where you're right, they do have a ton of mutual aid supplies at the tents. But what's more interesting to me is actually the graffiti that I've seen around the ICE facility, where there are multiple calls to kill cops, kill ICE.
These aren't peaceful protesters, and we know this already. This is domestic terrorists using homeless camps as base for anti-government activities. Now, let me tell you who's allegedly funding this whole operation, because the money trail has some very familiar names.
Peter Schweizer, president of the Government Accountability Institute, tells us many activist groups are linked to nonprofit organizations with tax-exempt status, oftentimes getting money by large grant-giving foundations.
So they're required to disclose to the IRS in something called a 990 form, so you can trace a lot of the money that way. The information that comes out is not always a complete picture, but I think it's a pretty good indicator of who the money is coming from and who is receiving the money and what they're using it for.
The Government Accountability Institute is tracking the money, and many of these activist groups are linked to tax-exempt nonprofits that get money from large grant-giving foundations. Oh boy, the research shows coordination across cities like Portland and Seattle involving people who were paid to participate in unrest. Major funding sources include George Soros Open Society Foundation, the Umbrella Funding Network, and the Tides Funding Network, and many others. So apparently we have a clear picture. Billionaire leftists are funding tax-exempt nonprofits that claim to help the homeless, but are actually paying Antifa operatives to create chaos, attack police, and prevent real solutions to homelessness. The National National Lawyer Guild shows up anytime there's protests turned riots to intimidate police to keep activists out of jail. They're basically the legal artillery for Antifa, funded by the same networks that fund the homeless industrial complex. America, what we uncovered here is one of the most sophisticated scams in modern history. Antifa, domestic terrorists, have infiltrated the homeless industrial complex, using taxpayer-funded nonprofits as cover while they attack police, create chaos, and prevent real solutions to homelessness. The scenes we're talking about: federal terrorism charges, coordinated attacks on ICE facilities, Antifa operatives embedding themselves in charity organizations. This isn't just about homeless policy. This is about domestic terrorism using human misery as a weapon against American society. These people don't want to solve homelessness because we know it is an absolute grift. They want to profit from it. They don't want safe, clean neighborhoods. They want chaos and dysfunction because that's what justifies their existence and funding. The money trail leads from billionaire leftists through tax-exempt foundations to street-level operatives who attack anyone trying to actually help homeless people. It is a complete illusion of charity and compassion. President Trump's designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization is already paying dividends with federal terrorism charges. But we need to go further. We need to investigate every single nonprofit connected to these networks and cut off their taxpayer funding. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.